Okay. Hi, welcome once again to another episode of Inside Out Alignment, your platform for self-discovery and creativity. Your host, Mary Taber. I'm very honored to have in our presence today Anders Bolling, who is a 57-year-old humanist, globalist, and seeker. He's traveled a lot, but lives most of his life in Sweden. Anders have dedicated the lion's share of her working life to journalism. He has also written few books. As from December 1st, he's no longer going to be employed as a journalist. However, he wants to span the borders between society, science, and spirituality. Thank you so much, Anders, for accepting this invitation to be on this platform. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Beautiful. So I will start by asking, what made you go into journalism? Was that like a passion you've always had, or you felt like what else people around you were in journalism? Or was it like, you had other people around you, into that field? Or was it
Yeah.
you being passionate about becoming a journalist?
Well, it's actually it goes way back because I think I was only something like 15 years old when I decided that I should become a journalist. And I had always, as a kid, I was always very interested in the world around me, and I loved traveling. I had the good fortune of traveling a lot when I was very young as well, because my father was working as a with foreign aid in countries in Asia and Africa, and I was the family was with him a couple of times there. So I was interested in the world and countries and geography and what was happening, even in politics actually when I was pretty young. And then first I wanted to be an explorer, a person who, I mean, as scientists that explored new frontiers. But then I realized when I was about 8 years old that every piece of land was already discovered. So that was not an option. So then I read a lot of Tintin. I don't know if you're familiar with that comic book. It's a Belgian comic book series with a hero called Tintin, and he is a journalist and he travels a lot all over the world, and there are all kinds of adventures that he is involved in. So I was fascinated by those books, and then I thought, oh, he gets to travel a lot and sees the world, and he's a journalist. I might become a journalist. So I opted for that when I was like 14, 15, 16, when you start thinking about what career to take and all that. So I was kind of interested in science and things like that, but I didn't really want to be a doctor. I didn't really want to be I didn't want to be a researcher working in a laboratory all day. So I wanted to do something a little bit more extroverted, I guess, meet people, do things, be out there. So I thought that journalism is probably my thing. It was the closest job that I could think of to what I wanted to do and see in life. And then I didn't become a journalist immediately after school. I traveled a bit on my own and together with friends. And actually, my grades from high school, we call it gymnasium in Sweden. It's in between high school and college. It's from the age of 16 to 19, and the grades you get from there you need to go to get into university. So. But I waited a little bit too long because they were only valid for 3 years. And then after that, I had to work actually it's in the system that we have in Sweden, or had at the time anyway. I was able to be placed in a different quota group, so to speak, a different quota group to be able to get into university after those 3 years if I worked full time for 2 years or so. So I had to do that. I worked at hospital and shops and bookstore and things like that. And then eventually I was able to get into that journalism school at the university in Gothenburg, Sweden. So I think I was 24 or 25, maybe 24 when I got to that education. And then from there on, I've been mostly working as a journalist. I've been doing some other things also during the 90s. I did some different things, but they have all been related to writing and communicating and things like that. So journalism has been at the core of my working life.
That is beautiful. And at the age of 14, 15, already having this, path and thinking about, becoming a journalist, and then following up to actually do it. I love that because most of us, we usually do not have that, we might think about things that we want to do, but we get maybe swayed on another side, maybe because of, like myself, when I was growing up, I thought about, I did like journalism, but maybe my environment where I grew from, I come from Cameroon. So our culture is not often like you have like deep conversations maybe about other people in the house, or they want to know exactly what you love to do and things like that. So I had like this feeling, but never had a chance to share it with my parents or even with friends because I think I was also I'm also an introvert. And my father especially was very protective of me in such a way that I was always afraid to do certain things and to just, explore. Right. And today that I'm doing podcasting, I kind of feel myself like I'm finally getting into the dream I've always had, like to
Oh
become
yeah,
a
that's
journalist.
wonderful. You're
It's not
finally getting
maybe,
there.
yeah, it's not maybe the way I thought of it when I was growing up, but it still gives me a platform where I can express, that gift.
Yeah.
And I feel happy doing it. So
Mm.
you having discovered that, got, and felt about that and followed your gut and actually do it, that's beautiful. And you're ready to retire. What can I
Yeah.
say about that? It's a beautiful journey. Then you have everything already planned because the way I look at your profile and everything, I've listened to most of your videos, and I find it
Oh,
like really
thank
not
you.
only inspiring but very encouraging and
Mm.
giving us the ability to be able to take our power back and being able to stand for what we believe without having to sway or having to think about what other people think about us. And that is the
Mm.
beauty of being authentic and be
Mm.
our real self, you know. So I like that. And you already have like things planned. I'm working, thinking at December, you're not going to be anymore there. But you've started something else, like
Mm.
your
Yes.
podcast, right?
Yeah.
Mind the Shift,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's the
So
name of
that
it.
right. So I really like the way you've planned things out, and then you have like, you're living here and this is where you're going. You have
Yeah.
everything like really light up. And I think that is the beauty of living. And I know by the time you sit, maybe you're really retired and you're sitting and looking back, that brings a lot of joy, knowing that you've
Yeah, because
accomplished things that
you
you
call it
love.
retiring, but I'm not actually retiring as a working person, as you can understand. But that's not what you're saying, I guess, because I'm
Mhm.
just quitting this job, this employment at big Swedish newspaper, and many people think they're surprised when they hear that I'm going to do this. They think it's a bit crazy because it's there's a lot of prestige in this workplace to be in this workplace. But I feel that I want to be free actually, and as you have probably heard from my reasoning in the videos that I've made, that I have this urge to pursue the to walk the path that I feel in my heart that I need to walk, and that we all should do that, and that we are actually at the core of ourselves free souls. We're born free, and this means that I mean, there's nothing wrong in having an employment and being employed. I mean, if you want to do that, you should do that, and I might be employed again in the future. Who knows what the future brings? But right now, I feel that I need to be detached from that kind of uh, web that you're in when you're employed. You're part of an organization. You're part of that employer, that company. So you're actually, when people refer to you, they refer to you as, oh, that journalist working at that newspaper. So you're not really Anders Bolling. Well, you are Anders Bolling, but you're Anders Bolling at Dagens Nyheter, the name of the newspaper, which is a bit infringing, actually, because I felt that for many years, that I really would like to live a life where I can be just Anders Bolling, just me. Or I mean, not even the name. The name is just a name that you get when you're born. But anyway, this is how we do things on Earth. We have names. So this is the name that I've been given. So this is me. I'm called that. So I mean, I just want to be that and express what I have inside me, and also not only express myself, but also be able to take in and learn from people, the people that I feel that I want to meet, that I want to talk to, that I want to explore the world together with. And when you are employed, you can do that to some extent. You can be free to some extent, of course. But I mean, it's a good employer. There's nothing bad with nothing wrong with this employer. But it's you always have bosses that want you to do this and that, and they kind of discourage you from doing certain things and encourage you to do other things, which is natural. So if you understand what I'm saying, I just have this feeling that now is the time for me to be free, and we'll see where that leads. I mean, it maybe in 2-3 years, I feel that I need to look for a job again. Who knows? Nobody knows. But I have this podcast now, and I have also plans to write articles on a freelance basis. And I have this hobby project, which, well, you might call it a hobby project, to write a book, some kind of a novel. It's a bit vague still, but it's very much fun to do that. So I try to take some days off now and then to write on that. And then I have some other ideas. So, I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities. The only problem is that in this world, you need to make some money in order to live your life. So that's the trick, But as long as, well, I have some savings now, so I don't have to panic. I can stay kind of laid back on that front for another half year or so, I think, and do my podcasting and do what I want to do. But then after that, I need to start finding ways to make money.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as you rightly said, yeah, I wouldn't say you're, actually just retiring from there and,
No.
just laying back. No, it's like you're moving from one step from where you are, and you have a destination of where you're going. So
Exactly.
yeah, so you have something already in plan, which is already in place actually, because your podcast is alive. You are, doing it, on a weekly basis, which is really beautiful. So you also wanted to talk about the shifting society. What do you mean by that when you talk about, shifting, society, the shifting society?
Well, we can start with the name of my podcast, which is Mind the Shift. It's a play on words, and it means two things actually, or it can mean many things. But in my mind, it means that there is actually an actual shift going on in the world. We're shifting from one state to another because we are integrating, and the world. Humankind is becoming integrated for the very first time in history. Actually, it has never happened before, and it surprises me that so few people actually think about that or make much of that, because I think it means a world of difference when we know, like you and I are now talking on a podcast, you sitting in Chicago, I'm in Stockholm. It's part of this integration and globalization thing. I mean, the positive part of globalization. There's a lot of bad connotations around the word globalization, but in my heart, in my mind, to me, globalization from the grassroots level is that people are coming together, and we are doing that now. We are actually integrating. We know what's happening on the other side of the planet in real time. And that does things with us. That changes humankind a lot, and for good, I think. So there's a shift, and it has many, of course, ramifications. It can mean that we learn from what they are doing in other countries and we want to do that too, or they learn from us, or we want to exchange ideas, we want to exchange things, and which took hundreds of years a long time ago. And just a few decades ago, it might have taken also a very long time if it ever reached you. And then the other part of it is that there is a shift in our minds. I mean, the first shift we should mind that shift, be aware of that shift. And the other shift is that our minds actually are shifting, because it goes together. I mean, I think humankind is an entity, is a creature in itself, of itself. Just as we are entities, each and every human individual is an entity, we are all together also. I mean, we go together, and we're all part of the universe and all that. But so the minds, the individual minds that we have, our way of thinking, our way of feeling as well, I think, is simultaneously shifting with this bigger shift, because we can never think the same way again about things that we've done before. There's a lot of talk about going back to how it used to be, going back to normal after tumultuous events in politics. For instance, we can just take the American election as a backdrop now. It's very, very salient when people, I mean, regardless what you think of Trump or Biden, many people talk about a return to normal, a return to how it used to be. You can never go back. You can never set your foot back in the same river twice. It's impossible. Things have changed, and they will continue to change. And what Trump did, he was a disruptor, and that affected not only the United States, but the whole world. I mean, we here in Sweden, we were watching what he was doing, like we were watching a soccer game or something. With people were just flabbergasted and fascinated. Some were angry, some were just amused. I don't know, but we are all in this together, and we can never go back to the exact same situation where we were before. And that doesn't mean to say that it's good or bad. It just is. This is the way the world works. And since we are now integrating, the world is integrating, the humankind is integrating for the first time, we realize this more clearly than ever before, and things are happening faster. It is almost as if time is speeding up, actually. And time is also a very strange concept. I don't think that time exists really, but we are conditioned to work, to live our lives as if there was time. But anyway, I think we can all agree that it seems as things are happening faster and faster and faster. And I think we are also evolving faster and faster because of that. And we can adapt to that. We can change. I think we can, within a lifespan today, so many changes can happen that would have taken many generations if you go a few hundred years back. It now changes within a lifespan of one person, the lifespan of one person. Things, I mean, the way countries are governed, how we take care of the environment, our energy systems, education, so many things can change during the lifespan of one person, and technology and all that. It's really a big shift in the way we need to think about how we do things. And I think also one of the most important features of this integration is that it's much easier now for the people who want to see, who are aware, and who are prepared to take responsibility and see what's happening. It's much easier now to see what is working and what is not working. And we can see it because we have all this information, these massive amounts of information that reach us all the time from all over the globe. We can see what's happening in the United States, in South America, in Africa, in Asia, everywhere, and we can compare and we can see, the corruption is rampant over there. It's the same here and there. They are also corrupt, and we can see that the politicians aren't honest, and now they are protesting here and they're protesting there for the same reasons, and they have contact with each other, these groups, and they seem to want to change it in the same way. So okay, that's probably the way we should do it. We should go by these protest movements and see to it that they can work together and maybe eventually try to find some better way of organizing society and doing things. So this is something that's really, really important. And many people are afraid of this because they think it's messy, and it is messy. It looks messy. If you look at the numbers of how many people are have bad health and are sick and are dying from violence and diseases and all that kind of things, those numbers are actually getting better. I mean, the statistics when it comes to that kind of measurement of how people are feeling all around the world, we have a better world than we used to have before. But on the surface of things, it looks messy because nothing is stable. It's moving around, and people are nervous. People are worried that because they see that no government seems to be able to be in place for more than a couple of years, and then something happens, and the economy seems to be not be able to be stable for more than a year or two, and then there's a crisis of some kind. There's some kind of crash, a financial crash, or something happens all the time, and it goes faster and faster. So on the surface of things, it looks very messy, and that scares a lot of people. Me, I think it's just an expression of our complete integration, and that things are happening faster, and that we are actually shifting. We are shifting. And where this is going to lead us, that's the million-dollar question, of course. I'm optimistic. I think it's going to lead us to a better place. But I mean, I'm no prophet. I can't tell more than any other person what's going to happen in 5 or 10 or 20 years. But I think it's going to be okay. But of course, I mean, things can backfire. I often say that what we have to do, we have to look at trends and averages. That's the only way to actually know what's happening in the world. Trends and averages. And if you look at trends and averages, you can see that a lot of numbers are going the right way, but there's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The problem is that we have a negativity bias, which is from, I don't know, ancient times. Our lizard brain tends to want us to scan for dangers all the time. So we focus on that 1 step backwards instead of the 2 steps forward. That's a human trait. It's unfortunate, but we work that way. And the media, especially the news media, I've been working there, so I know that they focus so much on the negativity that's out there. Journalists scan for problems, and there can be a sea of nothing happeningness. It's a sea of calm, and then they find a little ripple of problems somewhere, and they lift it up and show it, put it in the headlines. Look here, there's something bad happening over here that's been overlooked. Yeah. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Don't forget that.
I love that. So what would you say to somebody who feels like really stressed and have so much fear during these unprecedented times and feel like the worst is coming, just like you were saying? What would you say to people like that to encourage them and to have them in that place where they are more peaceful, or they can find a lot more peace and be hopeful, for the future, and not stay stuck? Because staying in that state, that's what brings stress, that's what brings frustration, that's what makes us sick, it brings a lot of things, anger. And you can give what you do not have. If we have peace, we'll be able to give that. So that will not only affect them, but will affect those around them. So what message or what would you like to provide for them in order for them to stay a little more positive and have hope?
Yes, well, I can answer that question on a couple of levels, I guess. One level is to cut down on the news consumption, which I often tell people. I'm a journalist myself, so it's maybe surprising, but I know that, And I have been cutting down on my news consumption myself, and it's been very good for me. I mean, it's not that you miss any big events that happen anyway. If you have your mobile phone and your little notifications there, or if you maybe check out your newspaper once a day or even 3 times a week, you won't miss any big things. There's no chance. So don't be afraid that you will miss anything, because if you don't watch the news as much, and some people do it 24/7, which is really bad for their health. You get this impression that there's constantly happening new bad things, but that's not true. It's not true, because most of the news, the pieces of news that are cabled out there, they are just a repetition. They're frying up old news as if they were new. It's the same events, the same happenings that are being massaged and twisted a little bit, and they rephrase the headlines. And I mean, if you look at CNN or Fox or those cable channels that are actually broadcasting 24/7 for real, and if you just look at it's insane. It's insane. But you can see, if you have some calm and you just listen to what they're actually saying and analyzing that, you realize that they're saying the same thing over and over again. So there's not that. I mean, things are happening faster. I just said that myself, but I mean, it's not that much. It's not that many bad things happening. And you also bathe in this journalistic mindset, which is to look for the negative and discard the positive, because something that's positive isn't really considered news. It's not newsworthy. Many of the positive things that are happening in the world are slowly evolving, pretty slowly and gradually, and it's virtually impossible for an editor to formulate a headline for something that has been developing positively gradually over years. It's very difficult. It's much easier to write a headline on something that is dramatic and sudden and happens now. Then it's often something negative, and so you get a false image of the world if you get your world image from the news. If you get your image of the world from the news, you get a false image, and that's not good for you. So cut down on the news. Read other books if you want to read books. You can read nonfiction, and you can read fiction. Watch happy movies if you want to consume media. And what I do, if I should answer it on a different level, on a more personal level, perhaps, I meditate. I've started meditating a couple of years ago, and I try to do it every day. It's not always possible, but I try to do that in the mornings, between 30 and 50 minutes, somewhere there. I sit still and try not to think, and that's very soothing. That's very good for you, and you get actually, when you step out of that meditation, you have a slightly different mindset. If you have a mindset at all, you feel actually calm. Even in your body, you feel calmer, and it's like, well, I'm going to take on this day, and it's everything's fine. It feels really good. And I also take long walks, and I know it's not possible for everyone. Some people work a lot, and they might not have the time or the energy to take very long walks. But I walk for at least an hour, 1.5, almost every day. That's also a good thing to do, because you get new perspectives. Sometimes I listen to music when I do it. Sometimes I listen to podcasts. But I would say that mostly I don't listen to anything, actually, because I like the silence, or alternatively the sounds that you have around you when you walk, either in downtown here or in a park or alongside the water line. There's a lot of water around Stockholm, so there are lots of beautiful places to walk. I think those are at least some parts of the answer to that question.
Thank you so much for that. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, when you talk of nature of reality, in your perspective, what is that, and how do you, can you expatiate a little bit on that to give us a little more clarity?
The nature of reality. Well, I'm just an amateur on these questions, but I have been listening a lot lately to people from the spiritual community and the philosophers and others who have talked about these things for a long time. And I believe that I was touching upon it earlier here. I believe that we are all one, that we are connected.
Sure.
And I'm very fascinated by the notion that is being presented by, for instance, Nassim Haramein, if you're familiar with this self-learned scientist who is now doing some very interesting things, and others also who are talking about the unified field.
Oh yeah.
So then it's a scientific basis for this. It's because spirituality and science cannot really be separated. It has been separated for a few hundred years now, which is unfortunate. Maybe it had to be for a period. Maybe it was necessary because the scientific community back in the 1600s, 1500s, Copernicus and all those, Galileo Galilei, they had to fight the church in order to have their worldviews, their scientific worldviews be put out there. So they had big problems with the church, of course. So that spirituality during those days was virtually the same thing as religion, which was in Europe was the church, and in other places was Islam or Hinduism or whatever. But today we have come some ways away from that. So people aren't really religious in that way. So people say that they're spiritual instead, which I think is more healthy, because I believe that we are at our core spiritual beings. So that's pretty natural. I think it's a good development that we are. I mean, people can be Christian or Muslims or whatever they want, of course. I believe that it's all the same thing anyway. But if you feel that Christianity gives you the things, the tools that make you feel comfortable about these spiritual things, then you should do that. Or if Islam does that. Me personally, I can't really feel that I want to belong to a church or to affiliate to any of these big religions. But I do want to delve into what my inner core really is, and everybody else's inner core really is. And that means that you try to delve into your spiritual, your non-physical expressions, the non-physical parts of you. And I think that we are, because of this, that the dichotomy between science and spirituality is slowly diminishing. It's been there for 300 years, and now it's diminishing again. It wasn't before this clash between the scientists in the 1600s and the church. If you go back further, they were actually, I think, more or less on the same side, religion and scientists. Especially if you go way back to the Egyptians and Sumerians and whatever. But then there was this dichotomy for 300 years, and now I think we're coming to a situation where actually the border between science and spirituality or the gap rather, is closing slowly. Not for everyone, but for many people. And it's so fascinating to listen to these guys, like I mentioned, Nassim Haramein and Donald Hoffman and others who are delving into, who are studying, exploring, for instance, consciousness, what is consciousness, and doing it from a scientific perspective, but are totally open to this not being physical. So, I mean, these guys and women, some women, of course, but I mainly run into or come across male researchers in this area, but never mind, that has nothing to do with it. But they are, because it's for some time it's been so these scientific types, the scientific extremists, if you will, they have been adamant that it has to be something physical, that consciousness must be placed somewhere in the brain, simply speaking, in some neuron, in some microtubules within some neuron within the brain. It can't be anything else. It can't be something non-physical, because everything is physical. The universe is physical, from the smallest subatomic particle up to the biggest galaxy. But the scientists that I mentioned, they are open to the possibility and what I think that the reality that there are actual dimensions that aren't physical. And so my take on it, my view on the nature of reality is that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, a human experience here on Earth, and we have it. I don't know, but I believe that much of what I've read and heard about it makes sense to me, that we are here to learn things, to experience things for different reasons. That our non-physical parts, you may call it the soul, you may call it something else, your higher self, whatever, maybe both of those things, want to have certain physical experiences that you can't have in the other dimensions that are not physical, like experiencing pain, experiencing limitations, which is, I mean, for us, it's self-evident. Of course, there's limitations. We're so used to it here on Earth. But I think that in those other dimensions, you don't have any limitations. You have what you need to have, and you experience what you want to experience. And that's what's so beautiful about it, but it's also less easy to grow under those circumstances. So I think that's maybe one reason why souls want to incarnate, to be born into physical bodies on Earth, and to have all these adverse events around you, and the limitations and the pain and all that. But if you realize that, if you think in that way, if you have this this belief or knowledge, if you want to call it that this is the reason why you have these problems and these limitations and these sufferings, then you don't suffer as much. Actually, there was somebody who said that, it was in some book. It said, life is difficult. Once you realize fully that life is difficult, it isn't that difficult anymore. That's kind of good, I think, because that's exactly what it's all about. I mean, if you see that there's a point to it, there's a meaning, then you don't suffer as much. Then you do. Well, of course, you suffer if it's a big, huge disaster happening in your life. I mean, I don't deny that. We're humans. My God, we get sad if somebody dies who we love and all that. But you can, at the same time, you can realize that it is an experience that you probably needed to have, and apart from those major disasters, if you look at the smaller ones, when you might lose your job, you might break a toe, you might I don't know, there's all kinds of small things happening all the time that you don't like. They get somewhat more, how shall I put it, interesting. It's kind of, oh, that was interesting. I wondered why I had to experience that. Well, this is not the full answer to your question. You were asking about the nature of reality, but it's part of the answer. I guess another part of it would be that there are, well, I was talking about the unified field, which means that there is some kind of the soul thing and all that apart. There is some kind of field or quantum. Some people call it the quantum soup, which I think is a cool term for this. Actually, that we are all swimming around in all the time, and not just all of us, but everything is in this quantum soup. And the physical manifestations, like our bodies or like this computer or this table or whatever, is just it's all energy. At the core of it, it's just vibrations, and everything is vibrating at different frequencies, and the energy is so to say more or less densely packed. So what we experience, what we conceive as physical objects, are this energy more concentrated and more densely packed than in other places, in other spots in this continuous space-time that we are existing in. So that's on the basic level, that's how I think that reality works. And then there's the universe, and the universe, as we can see it, is maybe just one of an infinite amount of universes, which is inconceivable for a human brain to understand, but it might be like that. Well, we all know that we start thinking about what was before Big Bang and what is outside of the universe. You start getting a headache because it's so difficult to grasp these concepts. But I think the very fact that we can't grasp and the very fact that it is actually not possible to understand a physical universe before the Big Bang and a physical universe outside of the universe that we can measure is almost an evidence that the physical universe cannot be the whole thing. It cannot be. It's got to be an expression of something. I think some people have said it very wisely that the universe is, well, some may call it God. I sometimes do myself, but there are some connotations around the concept of God. So it might be better if you want to reach a lot of people to talk about the universe or the life force or whatever, is actually wanting to experience itself. It wants to express itself and then experience itself. Creation wants to experience. So we are all little sparks of the universe. Every single consciousness that is out here. We are all connected, and we are all also separate individual sparks of the universe, and which means that we are all actually the center of the universe. Each and every one of us is the center of the universe, because now the universe, my perception of the universe, of everything that's happening and everything that exists, that I'm walking around and experiencing all the time, is completely unique. I mean, the universe can only express it that way through my soul, through my existence, in the same way as it cannot only experience the universe and everything that exists the way you do it, through your eyes and your experiences and your senses. So each and every one of us can be seen as the center of the universe, actually. So when people are getting sad when they think that, oh, we're so small, we're just dust particles in the universe, we're insignificant, we are nothing, I think that's completely wrong, because it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, you're so right, because when we come to the realization of how beautiful it can be of us all being in this universe and in our uniqueness, and being able to recognize the uniqueness of another person, then I think at that time we are able to have real constructive conversations about who we are and how we can, readily express ourselves here. Because I think whilst you were talking about Christianity and maybe other religions, I grew up as a Christian as well. Yes, that's what happened at home. We were in the church and all that. As I kept growing up, I came to the realization that, okay, I'm going to church, I'm coming back, and all this. But what is my connection to my real essence?
Mm.
And that gave me the opportunity to stay more open and to actually get to, my real self, like just sitting down and dreaming about certain things about myself and how I can be influenced or have that real insight from, we can call it spirit, because we are just the body here, and the spirit cannot express itself here without the body. So using us to express itself, it means I need to be attentive. I need to
Yeah.
recognize that voice first. And it's the recognition of that voice, that the recognition of that very essence, that will give me the ability to connect with it and to actually follow the lead and take actions in accordance to who I am here and the reason why I am here. And that was like a really great shift, because it only boosted my confidence in who I am and looking at the world like, it doesn't matter anymore about what others think or whatever is happening, but it's being one with my real self and being able to take actions that are fulfilling, not only to myself, but to those around me. And I think
Mm.
that it's very powerful for each and every one of us coming in that place, no matter the religion. We are all one. We are created in that image and in that likeness. And being in the world is, we all have the same, you know, physiology and many in many other ways, but
Yeah.
in a uniqueness of who we are as separate and unique human beings, which is the
Mm.
beauty of being together. And that's why I feel like sometimes we are fighting a lot about so many things in the world, which is not necessary. And we lose out on the real things that matter to us as humanity. And as we're talking about the shift, which is really necessary in this time for more collaboration and people coming together as one and recognizing each other. So thanks again for really going into that and sharing that, giving
Yeah.
your perspective about that. It's really beautiful. Thanks again.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. And so you also talk about finding one's path. What would you say to somebody who is still like really confused and they're still trying to find their path? And what tips do you have to help them get into that place where they are not only living the life they love, but they are doing the things and being their very self?
Mm. Yeah, well, it's many people have said this, and it sounds easy, but it's maybe not always as easy. But follow your passion, follow your heart. But how to do that? Well, first you have to start listening to your heart. I know that many people don't do that normally because they are so overwhelmed by what is happening around them in the mundane world and at work and with relations and families and everything. And I didn't myself for many years, I think, truly listen to my heart and the passion. But what happens when you don't do that, when you follow a path or pursue a career or something that you don't actually want to pursue yourself, but you might not know it, but you do it because you've heard others recommend it. I mean, you want to be you're a nice person, you listen to others, you take other person's advice, and you think that's a good thing, which it often is. I mean, it's very nice of people to listen to others and their advice, but I think it's a bit, actually you should be a little bit wary of that. You should be aware or you should be careful what advice you listen to, because if it doesn't resonate with you, if you don't feel that in your heart that this is right for me, you shouldn't actually follow that advice. And it might sound a little bit harsh, and you don't have to tell the friend or whoever it is giving you this advice that oh no, I'm not going to follow that, certainly not. You just, I mean, you can be polite and everything, and just thank them for the advice, and I'll think about it, but then you don't have to follow it. But anyway, oftentimes you do this, you follow the advice that you've heard and you've read about different kinds of jobs and careers, and oh, this seems to be the best, the thing to do, and this seems to be rewarding in terms of money, and this seems to be very interesting, and this seems, so I'll do this, I'll take this education, I'll pursue this education, and I'd hop on this career and go walk this path. And then what happens then, if you haven't listened to your heart, your passion, or even your guts when you do this, after a few years or even sooner, you will, as as you get a get a letter on the mail, as we say in Swedish, you will have problems. You will experience some kind of resistance, some kind of adversity. It might be small, it might be big, but that's, you can all, it's almost a guarantee that sooner or later you will experience some kind of resistance or adversity or problems, obstacles coming in your way, and you don't understand why this is happening. Why is it suddenly so difficult at work? Why is everyone trying to contradict me on meetings, and why is my marriage going so badly, and all kinds of things, and your car breaks down, and you're being evicted and everything, because I think the universe works in that way, that you're here to experience certain things. Your soul is here to experience certain things, but it can only express itself through your heart and your feelings and your gut feelings and all those things. The brain is just a tool. It's a very important organ, of course, but it is an organ designed to think, to analyze. But you shouldn't analyze. You can't analyze. The brain cannot find out your true path in life. That you have to find that. In order to find that, you need to listen to your heart and go by your passion, because that's the way the soul speaks. And it's not detailed, of course. Listening to your heart and following your passion can be very vague, but that's not the point. It doesn't matter really, because when you find the general path that you need, that you know that you want to follow, that you feel in your heart, this is right, you feel good about it, you feel exhilarated, maybe you feel happy about it. When you're thinking about it, you get happy, and you wake up every morning and you're energized, because you know you're going to do this, that you feel in your heart is right for you. Let's say it's a different path than the first one you took, and you just took because people told you to take it. Then you quit it, and then you realized, okay, I have to do this instead, because I feel in my heart I want to be an artist. I want to paint paintings. So you do that instead. And then every morning you wake up and you're energized. And what happens then is that, like magic, you will also have experience less hurdles, fewer or lower hurdles, and less obstacles and less adversities in life. Your marriage is going better. Your kids are doing fine at school, and everyone is nice to you in the store, and you meet all these kinds of interesting people that will help you develop what you're doing. If you're now, for instance, painting paintings, you meet all kinds of interesting other artists that can give you inspiration, and you maybe work together. So all kinds of things will happen that will tell you that I am on the right path.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to do. And it's very difficult for anybody to tell anybody else exactly what they're supposed to do. You can only do, if you want to give advice, you should do more or less like I'm doing now. I'm just encouraging people to listening to their hearts and their passion, because everyone can do that. It may take some practice, perhaps, because we're so conditioned not to listening to our hearts, especially in the Western world. We're just analyzing things and reading about things and listening to advice all the time. But if we just stop for a few moments every day and maybe meditate, if you try to meditate and listen, then we will eventually be pretty certain just about what path we're going to take in order to feel well. It's going to happen.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So you've also had some challenges in your life, and I know most of us have challenges, but we also tackle them, in different ways. So we'll be glad to hear of some challenges you've had, or a challenge,
Well,
and how you went about it, in your own way of tackling it.
yeah, I have had a few challenges, of course, but it's hard to tell how big or small they have been in comparison to others. But well, it's impossible to compare, I guess. So anyway, the first challenge that I think of is when me and my wife, we married in 1992, and she's still my best friend and soulmate, but we're divorced. We tried to have children in the early 90s, and we couldn't have children the ordinary way, so that was a challenge. So we, for many years, we went to doctors who helped us with this in vitro fertilization, IVF. I don't know if that's the abbreviation you use in the United States as well. And we had some problems with that, but we did get our beautiful daughter that way on the 5th try, I think it was. And then when she was 2 years old, we tried again, but failed. So that was actually pretty hard, because there were all these, my wife had to take all these hormones, so her feelings went, roller coaster rides up and down, and I was anxious, and I was worried that this wasn't going to work out. But we were, all along, we were supporting each other pretty well, I think, and we realized pretty early on that it was not sustainable to do this for a very, very long time. So we needed to have a plan B, which in our case then was adoption, which is of course natural. We could just as well have started by adopting a child. Some do, and that's, I mean, everyone has their path and chooses their ways. But we did this to have our second child, who is a boy born in South Korea. So we got him in the year 2000. And then it was just, I mean, as every challenge, when you're past it and you look back, it doesn't really look like a challenge anymore. It looks like an interesting experience. And I wouldn't for the world want to be without it, because, I mean, we have these two beautiful children now, and those are just how we got them is just, it's just an interesting story. But I know that during the time, during those years, it was pretty tough at times. It was a challenge. And then maybe you're referring to my divorce.
Whichever you want to share. It's a platform, and it's for you to share what you feel like sharing with us,
Yes, I can talk about the divorce, which actually isn't really a challenge, because it's more of an opportunity. We have, me and my wife, who is now my ex-wife, decided a couple of years ago that we didn't need to live together any longer, because our kids were grown-ups, they were adults, and we realized that we wanted to do partly different things in life, and we wanted to first and foremost, we wanted to evolve individually a little bit more than we had been able to do, but we didn't want to lose each other. We still wanted to be together as much as possible, but we realized we didn't really have to live together. And we decided also that the bedroom thing was not a thing anymore. That was a thing of the past, so we didn't have to do that. So why then do we have to live together? No, we should separate, actually. So we decided on doing that, and this was also parallel to, and it all goes together. It goes together. It was parallel with a spiritual journey that we started together. It was actually my wife Katarina who, I think, initiated this journey. We had started on our spiritual path years before, actually. When we met in the early 90s, we had a few years when we were really delving into these spiritual things, and we were reading Carl Gustav Jung, and we were going to astrologers, and we did all kinds of things. So we were very much into this, and I've had it in me since I was a kid also. But then the family thing happened, which means that you have other things on your mind. So we weren't diving as deep into this spiritual thing until, as I said, 2.5 years ago or so. Then my wife took up this subject, and and I realized, yes, she's right. She's actually completely right. I also want to follow this path, and I want to explore more about these things, and who am I, and why am I here, and what's my purpose, and what am I doing here. And in order to do so in the best way, uh, we decided, I mean, everyone decides for themselves what's best for them. We decided that in our life situation, this was the thing to do, to separate, live separately, have each of us has now a 2-bedroom apartment, pretty close to each other. Actually, it's about a 10-minute walk. So we see each other often, we hang out a lot, and we are still each other's best friends, and we're soulmates, and we're going to remain soulmates. I think we have been together in other lives or whatever also. I read a book now actually about past life experiences, and it's really fascinating. I haven't had any experiences like that. I can't say that I have any remembrance of past lives. I haven't that, but it's really fascinating to read and hear about these experiences. So anyway, I think what I and my now ex-wife Katerina feel about each other makes it pretty certain, I think, that we've had a connection, some kind of connection before, whether we've been husband and wife, or sister and brother, or brothers, or something, some kind of connection. I'm completely certain. So that was a challenge that wasn't really a challenge.
I love that, and I love the I should say the respect for each other, and the maturity. And I think bringing everything together the way you just explained it, it shows a lot of maturity and understanding of each other and respecting you guys, each other's views, and the beauty of still being together, even though, not married, you guys are not married anymore, but still, being together. It's
Yeah.
it's really beautiful, and it's something like really strong. So it means it is beyond what it was before. And that relationship is far beyond what we can sometimes think of, because at this point you guys are still you still hang out, and you're showing your kids that
Yeah.
it is still possible to live in this way and really respect, and still come together, you know what I mean? And that is really empowering. Thank you so
You
much.
know,
Yeah.
paradoxically, our relationship is in many ways actually stronger today,
See.
because we meet when we want to meet. We see each other when we want to see each other, when we have something important to tell each other, which we often have. And we don't have any of that, mundane household crap that was kind of in the way before. It's not there
Mhm.
anymore. So we only have quality time when we
Beautiful.
meet each other. I think it's really, really good. And this marriage thing, I think that when you raise a family, it's a very good thing if you can stick together. If you can hold the family together, that's beautiful. And then when the kids are grown up, you can decide, husband and wife, or if you're two husbands or two wives, whatever constellation, you can decide if you want to go on living together in the same household. And many do. And if you do that, if you feel that in your heart, this is the thing we want to do that.
Yeah. Hmm.
But if you feel that, I want to do it, we want to do it in a different way, we want to live separately, and try that out,
Why not?
then you should do that.
You're
And the
living.
marriage thing is just a construct, it's a construction, like so many things in this society that we just take for granted. But it's not self-evident, it's I think if we had met today, we wouldn't have. I think Katerina agrees with me there. We wouldn't have married. We might have stayed together for 30 years anyway, but I don't think we would have married, actually, because it's just I don't know, it's an old school societal construction thing.
Yeah.
You can show each other love in so many ways. You don't have
Anyways.
to do that thing. So that's my take on that.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Had a wonderful and great time with you. Where can the audience find you? I tried to
Hmm.
listen to one of your series and podcast, and it was so interesting, talking about listening to, our ego, and I think
Yeah. Was
um,
it the
the guest
the episode with Ibn
doctor,
Alexander?
yes,
Yeah,
about when he talked
that's a
about
good one.
his
Mm.
experience and all
Mhm.
that he went through and being in the other world and connecting
Yeah.
to that spiritual and then having to whatever happened in his life, and then he finally they didn't know he was going to leave or whatever, and he actually he's living and he's a testimony of whatever he experienced in the
I
other world,
know.
and
Really
it's really
fascinating.
beautiful. Yeah, fascinating story. Yeah. So thanks again. So
Yeah.
how can the audience meet you? And I really
Well, it's
encourage them
mind,
to
mind
really.
the shift. Mind the shift is the name of the podcast, and it's
Mhm.
you can find it everywhere where you find podcasts. I mean, it's on iTunes and it's on Spotify and it's on Google Podcasts and on Anchor and all the other platforms. So you can just look for Mind the Shift. There are a lot of podcasts with the word mind and the word shift in them,
Right.
but this is the only one that is called Mind the Shift. So just look for that. And then I'm actually working on creating a website. I have a good friend who is a web designer, and he just quit his job. So we're going to meet next week and have a work meeting about this website. So I don't have it as yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I will soon have it. And I think I'm going to use my name as the URL, Anders Bolling. But as I said, it's still not there, so it's not possible to search for it. But hopefully, and then I will use that as a platform to have links to different things I do and that I can present, like the podcast, of course, but also my videos, my vlogs, and things that I've written
Mm-hmm.
in the newspaper, and also on a freelance basis. I have written a few pieces on Medium, which is a kind of a platform. It's like a Twitter for articles, more or less. Uh, and I have done a few things in English, but a lot of it is in Swedish, of course. But that's how things are. So I want to reach an international audience. So I will try to do most of my stuff in English uh, from now on. Uh, but I will also, of course, be able to hold talks or whatever in Swedish if people want me to do
Sure.
that here in Stockholm. So, but if you want to invite me to Chicago to talk about
It would
some
be great
things,
to
I
have you
will
in
be happy to.
Chicago. Next time you come in Chicago, let us know.
Yes, I certainly will.
Yeah.
Certainly will.
So thanks again, Anders. And for the audience, I want to say that at on the description box of this episode, you'll find the links and where you can get to the podcast, directly, or if you want to contact Anders Bolling for anything, you can also do that. So thanks again for this wonderful time and speaking from your heart and bringing us so much knowledge and your experiences. It was a great time. I appreciate you really being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate it so much myself. It was a great talk. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And dear audience, take time to really listen to his podcast, which is Mind the Shift. I've listened to two or three of them, and they are really, really interesting. If you want something that's inspiring and that will make you, go forward and take action in the things that you love, please do not hesitate to take action, because that is what pays. That is where the growth is. So resistance is there, but take the first step. The first step will lead you to where you need to go. Once again, take care and see you on the next episode. Bye bye for now.